Loads of fun. Hey folks, how you doing? Nick Jennison, Guitar Interactive, LickLibrary.com. It's Monday. We're doing the thing that we do on Mondays, which is hang out and talk not just about the guitar, but talk about specifically jazz on the guitar. Only ever to be said in that particular accent, jazz. I have just got in from the rain. I got absolutely friggin' soaked. It is not even funny. Been gently drying off for the last 10 minutes, maybe, who knows. But here we are with jazz guitar-ish in hand to discuss with you how you, like I, can blag some jazz. I'm definitely not a jazz player, but you may be noticing a theme over these last couple of weeks where we do styles of playing that maybe aren't your home base and see what we can steal from said styles of playing. We're going to talk about how you can blag some jazz, but we're also going to talk about how you can learn from jazz players and improve your rock playing, your blues playing, your metal playing, whatever kind of playing you happen to be doing. We're also going to take a second to focus this camera because this camera is absolutely kicking me in the rear. Let's just very quickly get that in. There we go. So it's not doing this way every time I move my hand even slightly towards the screen. But before we do that, I want to take this second to welcome you guys on board. Thank you so much for joining me. It's the thing we do every Monday. We hang out, we chat about the guitar. It's a good time. So very quickly, before we get stuck in today's stream, if you are new here, don't forget, give this video a thumbs up on whatever platform. Pardon me, cough, stifled that, whatever platform you happen to be watching on. And also, don't forget to share this with your guitar playing friends. And while you're here, whatever channel you happen to be watching on, don't forget to give us a subscribe. It helps us reach as many guitar players as we possibly can. It also helps us keep bringing you these streams just like this one. We've had a couple of really good fun ones lately where we've done some country, we've done some fusion, we've done some rock and roll. Last week we did a Brian Setzer style stream. It was really great fun. So if you want more of this stuff, if you're enjoying what we're doing here, thumbs up if you would be so kind, and also don't forget to share this with your guitar playing friends and give us a subscribe while we're here. Let's very quickly check in with the stream, see who's in the house, and then we'll turn our attention to some things that we can steal being the operative word, from our favourite jazz players. First things first, let's say hello to PJ, who was the first one through the door. PJ says, hey Nick, guys, hope you're having a great week. This week, been working through Dan Smith's Western Swing licks, brilliant, especially with the phrasing. Well, you'll probably recognize the backing track that we're playing over today because that is the Jazz Blues in F from Dan Smith's fantastic Western Swing licks. It was the featured course in last week's stream where we talked about rock and roll, specifically talking about that rockabilly kind of vibe. This is kind of an extension of that, if that makes sense. Marcine says, hello Nick, hi guys, open up your notebooks because it's jazz day. Indeed it is. Daryl Queen says, hi Nick and everyone, this one's going to be good. Well, I think it's going to be a lot of fun, let's put it that way. Marcine says, Daryl Queen, good to have you here. Hope you are indeed ready to get your 2-5 on. Yeah, I was made to memorize 3-6-2-5-1 like it was my phone number when I was at college. That was exactly the words that the lecturer used. Said, memorize 3-6-2-5-1 like it's your phone number. I'm like, yeah, cool, nice. Okay, we're into that. Response audio is in the house. Lovely to see you. Daryl Queen says, sure, mate, got my pentatonics ready. Don't sleep on the pentatonic for jazz, man. We're into that sort of thing. Who else is in the house? Larry Warren is here. Lovely to see you. Crackatom is tuning in from the Swedish West Coast. Very nice. No reasonable data connection for an enjoyable stream, so I'll check the show out later. Hopefully I'll join next week. Well, listen, man, if you do get a chance, let us know in the comments how you get on with the stuff that we're talking about today. Hopefully you'll get some cool ideas out of it. Now, let's see what else we have. Sacred Godslavers in the house, our Italian metal correspondent, about as far away from the jazz as you can get, but metal is so far away from jazz that it basically joins back at the other end of the circle and winds up being pretty similar. Kate Strange is in the house. Steve McD says, I played harmonica regularly in a jazz trio, but couldn't transfer my knowledge to guitar. I need to know more about this, right? Jazz harmonica sounds really interesting. I'm guessing you'll be using a chromatic harp for that one. Although I don't know, let us know. Just tell us a bit more about that because I want to know a bit about this jazz harmonica thing. That sounds really, really interesting. A username I really can't pronounce, XX Doctor 34M5XX, who I shall henceforth be referring to as Dr. 34. Why not? Dr. 34 is in the house. I'm terrible at usernames and I will continue being terrible at this, but I'm very glad that you're here. Thanks for tuning in. Cowcat's here. Fog Cornish is in the house looking for some jazz licks. He's been learning some jazz licks, chords and progressions over the weekend. Just what the doctor ordered. Well, expect some very inauthentic jazz from me because I am not a jazz player, although I did study jazz for a few years when I was at college. I had it inflicted on me and then I decided I just wanted to play T-Rex and rage quit. But even still, Deadman, Doogie, Van Dugerson is here in the sweltering heat of Arizona, waiting for FedEx to deliver another PRS SE. Want to know some numbers, want to know what you've got there, because PRS SEs, they're great guitars. Recently checked out the NF3, which is to die for. Great guitar, really, really cool. Timothy Appling is here, says, made it home just in time. The Spider is a kick-ass song. We'll definitely purchase the album when it's released. Thanks, man, I really appreciate that. For anybody who's missed the boat on that one, The Spider is the first single from my heavy metal band, Blitzkrieg. I play in a few bands. It's one of my heavy metal band rather. We released a song called The Spider a few weeks ago. It's been really, really well received. Big guitar vibes on that one. So, a big change of pace from new wave of British heavy metal through to le jazz. But yes, we're into that one. I'm really glad you like it. We have another single dropping soon. In the meantime, also dropped a single with my other band, Saints of Arcadia. The song is called One on One. If you guys are interested in checking that out, I will post links in the chat. I'm sure I'll get some of that on the go in a wee bit. Mike Seedoff is here. Helmet Strap is here tuning in. We'd love to hear Nick plays from Joe Pass. So would I, let me tell you. Thomas Ross is in the house. The Thomas Ross. Lovely to have you. Ergo Hogg is here. Great to have you on board. Who else do we have? Let's see. Make sure we don't miss anybody. We've got some really cool stuff going on. Oh, it's a lovely compliment from Mike Seedoff. Says, well said. I know that without a doubt, Nick is definitely one of the best guitarists / musicians / instructors that YouTube has blessed us with. Now that is super kind. I really appreciate that, man. That is very, very good of you. Who else do we have? Let's very quickly say hello to Mark Crandall. Alan Bruker, rather, my mistake, is in the house. Victor Zika is tuning in. Who have we got? Let's see. Sensei Snownuff is in the house. Eric Warrington's tuning in. Eric, great to have you. Neto Barros is in the house with his guitar on lap. Nick Harrison is tuning in. We're going to make sure we don't catch anybody else. We got some questions about 36251. I'm going to get to that one. Don't you worry about that. Sacred God Slay, remember the answer. 36251. It's always the descending fourth. It is the magical progression. It's the 145 of jazz, if that makes sense. But we'll get to that. So listen, we've got some really cool stuff for you guys today, but don't fear if you're not a jazz cat, right? Because I'm not a jazz musician. I am a jazz musician in the sense that I occasionally play chromatic scales. Nina says, what a fantastic hairdresser you have. Can confirm. So that's my partner Nina, who's been chopping away at my hair because it was getting a little bit over the top. And undoubtedly she'll want to do a little bit more when I get back in the house tonight. We don't know. Yeah, it was a little bit that she spotted as I was leaving. She went, let me just get that bit. And I'm like, it's fine. We'll get that. So anyway, let's get into the meat of today's session. The first thing that we can pinch from our friends in the jazz world is going to be chord related. Now, everything we've done thus far has been very solo heavy, but tip number one that we can pinch from our jazz friends is chord playing related, and the tip is this: the root note is somebody else's job. I will say that once again. The root note is somebody else's job. Now, this is kind of a hard thing for us to swallow as rock guitar players, because in rock rhythm playing we tend to want to lean really heavy on these big chords, like this sort of deal where we're playing these big G's and C's and D's. But in the wonderful world of jazz, I'm not going to say it's frowned upon to play this sort of thing, but when we're playing through our chord progression, we tend to avoid, where possible, playing root notes. Now, this is going to help our chords sound a little less clumsy. I'm going to take you through how you might do this in a blues progression, but then I'm also going to show you how you can extrapolate from this to be a better rock rhythm player, let's say, or a better funk rhythm player, or any of the above, by doing the old root note avoidance. Now, let's start by firing up a slow blues in B. This is my favorite slow blues backing track. Now, this is not strictly a jazz track, this is a blues track, but it's going to serve to illustrate the point. Now, very quickly, our blues progression in B is going to be B, and I'll just shout it out. So B is where we begin. Let's have a B. We're going to stick there for a little while. We go to an E. We go back up to a B. I think you know where we're going with this. We stick on B for just a second, and away it goes. Bluesing for the rest of our lives. You know where we're going next with this. It goes to an E once again. That's our 4 chord. We could insert a diminished chord here. It's some messing around. We'll get back to that. Next up, we're going to go to our 5 chord, which is going to be F sharp. F sharp up here. We play. We're going to bring our way back down to our E chord, then back to our B chord. Allow me to demonstrate how we might very simply comp through this, comp being a fancy way of saying playing rhythm, without playing any root notes. So I'm going to avoid playing my B entirely and play this. So on and so forth. Now, a couple of root notes in there, no big root notes in the bottom. Let's extrapolate out from here. Now, what I'm playing is I'm playing some chord voicings with the express intention of leaving the low root notes to my bass player. I'm going to assume that there is somebody handling the bass. It's either an upright bass player or an electric bass player. Maybe it's a piano player or an organ player who's dealing with it with their feet or with their left hand. Either way, not super important, but we're going to recognize that as guitar players, unless we're playing some walk and bass stuff, we generally aren't super interested in playing the root. Now, let's get into what it's going to look like in the key of B. We're going to start by taking a B bar chord. This is our B bar chord here. You'd be forgiven for, when it's time to hit a B chord, laying on this chord right here, but we're not going to do that. We're going to start taking a look at what's in here and start extrapolating out to some bigger chord extensions, some smaller chord voicings. Let's begin by pulling apart what's in this chord. We've got a B, we've got an F sharp, we've got a B again, we have a D sharp, we have an F sharp, we have a B. We could call these 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. That's a lot of ones. That's an awful lot of one. We've got some questions about walking bass. We've got some questions about tone. Don't worry, next tip is about the tone. Fear not. We're going to get onto that sort of thing. But I'll tell you about the tone in just a second. So, we got a lot of ones. We got a lot of ones that maybe we don't want to play. So if we got rid of all of the ones, get rid of this one, get rid of this one, get rid of this one, what are we left with? We're left with 5, 3, and 5. Not a very interesting, not a super jazzy chord progression, or a super jazzy sound. It sounds kind of fun though. If we've heard that B, and we just play the 3s and 5s, that can sound quite nice. We're doubling up on some notes here. We've got a 5 here and a 5 here, so we could just play this. And that would work. Let's just quickly throw that on over the B. That would work quite well. But there are some other notes that we can throw into the mix. We can throw on some 7s, we can throw in some 11s, we can throw in some 9s, we can throw in some 13s. Let me show you some easy places to find these. Let's begin by finding some 7s. Now, if we take the idea that this is a minor 7 chord, sorry, a dominant 7 chord, my mistake, we're about to play a minor 7. If we take this, that we just had. We've reduced it to this. That would be our root note. The minor 7 is 2 semitones below the root. So if we count our way down, we've got this note here, this note here. In this case, fret 7, fret number 8, D string, G string. That in itself sounds absolutely hideous. It's a tritone, but if we drop it in this context, suddenly it sounds really nice. Reason being is, as soon as we include a root note, this tritone becomes a dominant 7. Now we could play a 5th on top, but a better use of our time would be to maybe play something like this. Suddenly we're getting something a little bit jazzier, let's say, a little bit more appropriate for what we're trying to the sound we're trying to conjure. Let me show you what's going on here. This note was our 5. This note is a flat 6. This note here is a 6. We could call this a dominant 13 chord. Now, dominant 13 is a chord that contains the following notes. It contains 1, 3, 5, flat 7, 9, and 13, which is the same as 6. And you might be going, well, wait a minute, hang on. That's 6 notes. You just played 3. You played 3 notes, but that chord has 6 notes in it. What do you want? Well, here's the thing. We don't have to play all those notes. The first note that we can get rid of out of our chord is the root note, because we assume someone else is playing the root note. This is true in jazz. It's true in rock too. It's true in blues. We assume the bass player is handling some kind of outlining of the root note, because that is the function of the bass in most Western music. Now, most, not all, but most. Unless your bass player is very clever and is pre-arranged to do some other stuff. Sting said something interesting about this, where he said he gets to determine with his voice and with his bass what the chord is. So, you know, if the guitar player plays a C and he wants it to be an A minor 7, he's playing an A, and it's an A minor 7, and it doesn't matter what anybody has to say about the subject. Anyway, we can eliminate the root note. We can also eliminate the 5th, because the 5th doesn't really add any extra information to our chord. So let me throw this once again, right? There's my B flat. There's my B flat 9. B flat 13 rather. If I also throw a 5th in here, like this, that doesn't really add anything to our chord, unless we end up playing something weird. Maybe we flat the 5th, in which case we've got to do something with it. But if the 5th is unadjusted, if it is not molested in any way, we can ignore it, and we can safely include notes like 9s. We can safely include notes like 6s, aka 13s. Now, this is another fun thing we can do with this. With most unaltered, most unfiddled with chords in a given progression, we can add the 13 with relative impunity. Daryl Queen says the 5 is just there to be altered. Basically is. So, like, all the rules of rock rhythm playing, which is play the 1 and 5, kind of go out of the window when we're playing jazz. It's like, don't play the 1 and don't play the 5. Someone else is playing the 1 and we don't really need the 5. So we can safely ignore 5s, we can safely ignore 1s. So we can play flat 7, we can play 3rd, we can play the 6th, we can also play the 9 if we want to. We're going to back up a little bit here, because our friend Sam Junior Music says, wait, 6ths are 13ths? Yes, let's do a little count, by the way. So, okay, so if we assume that, just to clear this up for everybody, so if we assume that the octave is the same note as the root note, which it is, so 8 equals 1. If we count on our fingers, if we go octave, and then we go 9, octave being 8, 10, 11, 12, 13. Well, we've just done 6 notes. So octave being 1, 13 is equivalent to 6, only up 1 octave, if that makes sense. Now, that's actually apocryphal. We don't have to play it up the octave. That's kind of a traditional way of referring to it. You can play the 13 any way you want within the chord. traditionally we play it on top, but you don't have to. Now, here is another one from my friend Mike Seedorf, who's saying our 7th chords using jazz voicings, major, minor, etc. Absolutely. So you could potentially argue that the difference between pop music and jazz music is the inclusion of a 7th in terms of harmony. Now, I realize there's more to it than that, but if we take the example of some reggae, let's say, right? Let's take some reggae. And I'm going to take a reggae chord progression that maybe goes D minor, E minor, A minor. It's like I Shot the Sheriff. We go D minor, E minor. As soon as you introduce 7s and make it D minor 7, E minor 7, A minor 7, it stops being reggae. And starts being what happens when Hall & Oates play reggae, for example. Nothing wrong with that. It's a perfectly fine way to play music. But is it reggae? Not so much anymore. Similarly, if we would take the typical jazz chord progression, which is a 2-5-1. So 2-5-1 in the key of C, for example, would be D minor, G major, C major. Doesn't really sound like jazz at this point. As soon as we make them 7ths, now we're playing jazz. So the inclusion of the 7th is an important thing. Inclusion of a 7th is an important thing for this. So we can play the 7th. We don't have to play the 7th, but we can. We can also include 6ths like they're free, and we can include 9ths like they're free in major chords, in minor chords, in dominant chords. Check it out. So if I play the same thing, if I play this D minor 7, let's go to these cameras so we can see what's going on, and I include this 13, there's the 5th, there's the 13. On top of the major 7, I can just play them. Put the major 6 in there, yep, that's fine. Put the flat 6 in there, yep, that's fine. Also fine. It's basically free real estate as far as jazz is concerned. But the important thing here is that if somebody else is playing, we don't need to play those root notes. We can use our chord playing time to play some other voicings. So let's find some. Let's do some voicings that we can play over our blues. So let's do these together. Here's some fun ones, right? There's a B. Let's play this together. We're going to play from the D string down over. We'll play an A note, a D sharp note, a G sharp note, a C sharp note. You could think of them as flat 7, 3rd, 6th, and then 2nd or 9. Or you can think about it as fret 7, fret 8, fret 9, fret 9. Now that in itself sounds a little bit unusual, but as soon as you put this on the bottom, it all makes sense. That's going to be the chord we play over our 1 chord. Watch this. Over the 4 chord, we're going to start here. We'll play 3rd, flat 7. This one here, which is also our 3rd, and this guy up here, which is our 9. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's our 9. No, our 13. My mistake. 13 on top. So we have this shape here. 6, 7, 9, 9. 1 chord, 4 chord, 1 chord. If this is the 4 chord, this can be the 5 chord. Easiest thing in the universe, right? So if I go, it sounds like a 12-bar blues. We're going to do this together over our 12-bar blues progression. And then we'll do some soloing ideas. Here's the 1 chord. For extra credit, play it a semitone below and slide it in. Here's the 4 chord. One chord again. You can even hear that I've done this in the backing track. One chord again. There's our 4 chord. Haven't done anything fancy with the progression here. Here comes back to the 1 chord. Let's go to the 5 chord. Here's 5 chord. It's the same as the 4 chord, only up 2 frets. Back down to the 4 chord, down 2 frets. 1 chord in between. Here we go. And on we go. By eliminating these ones and using the strings that we have available to us to play all these extra fun sounding notes, we get to sound more jazzy without necessarily having to be super jazz with our playing. Now, let's move on to the next tip, the next thing we can steal from our jazz friends. If you want some more information on that, by the way, we've got some really great stuff in today's featured course. So don't forget, this lesson is brought to you by our friends at licklibrary.com. Go to licklibrary.com for more lessons. If you click the link down below, we've got a course that was originally a guitar interactive course by Cameron Allen, and it's From Blues to Jazz. It's a great course that walks you through the process of stepping out of being a blues player and starting to incorporate some jazz into your vocabulary. It's a really, really great place to start if you want to know a little bit more about this stuff. So if this has gone over a little quick, we only have an hour together, so I'm going to have to go necessarily quite fast with this stuff. If you want a more in-depth explanation, link down below, Cameron Allen. Now, on to the next one, which conveniently enough, my friend Marcin has already asked about, which is how do you set up that jazzy tone? Well, this is the next thing that we can steal from our jazz playing friends, which is use your tone control. Use your damn tone control. So, a few things. First of all, when it comes to playing jazz rhythm guitar, there are a few rules. All sorts of jazz guitar, really. The few rules are as follows. 9 times out of 10, we're playing on the neck pickup, right? Neck pickup into a clean amp. Now, my amp is not set super clean, but I can back off my guitar's volume to the point where it's at least reasonably clean. Even the cleanest guitar in the world usually has a bit of bite on it. That's my amp sound on the guitar's neck pickup. Doesn't sound super jazzy right away because my tone control's wide open. Let's go to these 2 cameras. I'll show you what's going on here. Here is my tone control. Watch this. If I dump my tone control, I'm also going to pull this up to reduce the windings on this neck pickup a little bit. So there we go. This is a PAF style humbucker, by the way, in case you're wondering. It's made by Amber Pickups. It's a Spirit of 59. It's an Alnico 4 unpotted PAF humbucker. Very, very sweet. Now, if I take this same sound that I've got here and I roll my tone control back, turn it all the way off, we get this. Now that may be a little too far, so I'm going to take my tone control to about 2, and this seems to be the sweet spot on a lot of guitars. So on and so forth. Now, we'll talk about that rhythm thing in a second, but using your tone control, man, nowhere near enough guitar players make use of their tone control, myself included. But here's the thing, not all tone controls are created equal, and different guitars have different tone cap values. Now, I personally don't ascribe to the idea that the tone capacitor type, i.e. is it an orange drop cap, is it a ceramic cap, is it a paper and oil cap, makes that much difference. But I do feel like the cap value is a big deal. So for me, I tend to prefer my own guitars. I tend to prefer a small capacitor value. The reason being that I don't really like a huge range of treble on my tone control. I want to be able to turn it off and have it be usable. I want to be able to turn it up and have it be usable. But also, when I've done some experiments with this in the past, I have found that a smaller capacitor value gives me more treble in the more wide open position. But have a listen to this very quickly. It's worth experimenting. This is why the rules for set your tone control at 2 don't really work. Because I'm going to play this guitar and then I'm going to grab the PRS 594, which has similar style humbuckers, but is a much more aggressive tone capacitor. So if I play here, this is my tone control wide open. Here it is back at 2. Now, let's quickly switch guitars. I'll show you what's going on with this more aggressive tone cap. Now, this will become clear as we go further, but let's go to, here's the 594, beautiful guitar, really gorgeous. Could do with some new strings, but that's neither here nor there. Here's the neck pickup, tone control wide open. Here's the tone control all the way off. Notice how that's just become a mumbly mess. Now, for this guitar, because the tone capacitor is way more aggressive, I would personally be looking to roll this off somewhere around the 5 mark. Maybe a little more, maybe 3. Now, that's probably still a little bit much, but the point with this is it should serve to illustrate that different guitars have different tone pot values. This is a really easy modification for you to make if you want to mod your own guitar. It's like literally 2 solder lugs, right? It's worth you doing. Play around with different tone cap values. You might find, like me, that you like a slightly less aggressive tone. You might find that you prefer a really full-on tone control like the one in the PRS for a variety of reasons. Who knows? That's also a traditional Les Paul tone cap value. It has a particular effect on the wide open setting too. So there's that. But we use our tone control when we're playing the jazz thing. Now, here's a great tip from Daryl Queen. Says, also worth keeping in mind that you can kill some treble just by notching back on your volume control. That is true. Depending upon the way your guitar's wired, if you knock the treble control back, the volume control back just a tiny bit, we can also lose a little bit of treble. Check this out. Here it is wide open. Back a little bit. Back a little more. Now, my guitar has what's called 50s wiring, which means we lose a bit less treble than you might expect from a 60s wired guitar, but even still, I don't have a treble bleed on this, but it does mean I can retain a bit more treble. But some guitars will roll off a lot more top end as you start to roll things down. But here's the thing. We don't just have to use the tone control when we're playing the jazz thing, if we're just doing the old jazz leads. So for example, if I go back to my jazz sound very quickly, I'll just fire this back on. Yes, I can roll this way back and get this kind of deal. Now, if I roll it up, you'll notice here the amp almost sounds a little bit like it's on the verge of saturation. There's a bit of power amp compression going on there. I've done that deliberately. Roll my tone back. This guitar has fresh strings, so they may be going out of tune very rapidly as we go. Fresh strings in jazz, who knew? But we don't just have to do it with this. We can use our tone control to great effect when we're playing rock and playing playing blues, playing styles of music that aren't jazz. Let's fire up the Joe Bonamassa style backing track that we like. And I'm going to go to my favorite lead sound, right? This is my super cracking lead sound, which is going to howl at me. It's going, stop doing that. We're playing jazz today. Let's get some delay on here as well, because is the rock sound. Watch what happens when I start to play around with my tone control, especially on this bridge pickup. Check out how cool this sounds. Roll this back. That almost sounds wah-ish. On the neck pickup, it brings us closer to that Sweet Child of Mine tone. It's super fat. Let's check it out in context. Tone control wide open. Here we go. Again, excuse me, tuning. These strings are brand new. Okay, let's go to the bridge pickup, tone back. Let's go to neck pickup, tone back. That is a really cool sound, but it's not the only situation where we can make some really good use. Well, stop shouting at me, amplifier. Behave yourself. It's going to keep doing this, isn't it? Let's go to this sound. So that's a cool thing. But here's another fun trick for you guys that are playing bands. This is a tip from Steve Morse, and I think it's absolutely gold. If you're playing in a band and you want to bring some light and shade to the verses and choruses, let's say, for example, you are playing, I don't know, let's say you're playing a rock song. I'm not going to play a rock song that's going to get us copyright struck, but I'll make one up. So let's say we're playing something like this. When the singer starts to sing, roll your tone control back. Keep playing the same thing, but roll down your tone control. Watch this. Now listen to the room that I have for my voice on this. You can hear me talking, so I've got the audio set up in a particular way. Tone control back. You can hear me talking. Notice how the voice cuts loads better when the tone control is back. And then chorus. Roll that tone control up. You essentially get a free volume boost for your singer, but in addition to this, you get to keep the meat of the sound, you get to keep the bass and the mid-range weight, but just rolling out a bit of that treble goes a long way towards freeing up some space for a vocal line. You can also do this under solos. So if somebody's playing a solo in your band and you want to keep it big and beefy, just take your tone control back and watch them carry through the mix. It's a really cool tip as far as tone controls go. That's the thing. So that is tip number 2. Tip number 2 is use your tone controls. Now, on to tip number 3. And tip number 3 is that dynamics can be your best form of expression. Who would have thought we were talking about expression in a jazz context? Well, jazz, generally speaking, we don't do the typical rock, blues, expressive things. If I go back to my jazz backing track and I start doing some big vibrato and I start doing even with my jazz tone, it's going to sound a bit weird. It's just generally not a thing we do. I think this is something to do with the traditions of the music, but also the setup of the instruments. Generally speaking, big jazz boxes with low frets, heavy strings, wound Gs. It's not really conducive to as we're about to find out when we listen to this track and we hear how out of place it sounds when I play that stuff. Watch this. Now, if you're coming from a rock blues perspective, it's tempting to ascribe all expression to these wibbly wobbly techniques, if that makes sense. These wibbly wobbly techniques where we talk about bends, vibratos, slides, all that sort of thing. Slides are still legal, but bending, vibrato, pick harmonics, all that sort of deal. This stuff is invaluable to you as a rock player and as a blues player. As a jazz player, it's kind of off the table. But that doesn't mean that your jazz playing has to be unexpressive. Your jazz playing can be supremely expressive if we embrace the use of dynamics. Now, to begin with this, Daryl Queen says, does it sound out of place? Or does it sound like Robin Ford? Well, maybe. Who knows? Maybe not with that tone. But if I throw, I'm going to have my slapback on there. So maybe if we throw maybe a more of a Robin tone on, maybe we'll throw a bit of drive on here. Let's see. Probably wouldn't do the big delay thing, but let's maybe try a little more wide open with the tone as well. Yeah, maybe sounds more like Robin. But that's more like Robin when he's doing his blues thing. You'll notice with Robin, he seems to have these two poles in his playing. He has the blues pole and the jazz pole, and he kind of is drawn between them and never really goes all the way one way or another. And that's what we like about it, and that's a really cool thing. But that's Robin leaning more towards the blues pole, I think. But even still, pole being an interesting one, magnetic pole. Not two people from Poland, although there would be nothing wrong with that. Anyway. So, on to the expression thing with jazz. Now, if we don't have these expressive techniques at our disposal, fear not. Fear not, for we can use dynamics for this. Now, what do we mean by dynamics? Loud and soft. Loud and soft is the top and bottom of it. But listen to this, right? Check it out. If I play with just everything level, I'll try and make the dynamics as even as I can. I'm going to go to this set of cameras so you can see what's going on here, right? Then I'm going to start to introduce some dynamics into the mix. We'll see what happens. So, same track. Let's do the tone as well. Now the lines are fine. When we start to bring the dynamic in, on and on we go. A little bit lost with the time there, but you guys get the gist, right? Now, how do we cultivate this? How do we cultivate this and make it sound cool? Well, so often, this is a tip that Tom Quayle gave to me when he was kindly telling me why my jazz playing sucked so badly. Still kind of sucks, because I'm not a jazz player. I don't live and speak that language, but I can busk it. Now, some love for the chromatic runs there from Mike Seedoff. I love a bit of chromatic stuff too. Chromatic stuff, we covered that in our fusion stream. We covered the chromatic thing. All of those rules still apply. In case you're wondering why I'm not going into chord tones and chromaticism and encirclement and all that stuff, we did that stuff. We did it in our fusion stream. And we actually did a good amount of it in our country stream as well. So if you guys want some of that, make sure you go check that out too. But so often with this stuff, to make it sound cool, the dynamic is on the offbeat. So when we play jazz, we generally have a swing. We generally have this bop 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 bop. When we play with a very heavy downbeat, if we play with the long note with the swing. It can sound a little bit, it's a bit, you know, kids' TV. When we start to play with a heavy upbeat, things start to sound a little bit more together, if that makes sense. So being cognizant of this and being cognizant of this flow of bad, dad, 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 bad, bad, bad in your playing is going to make a huge difference to your ability to play convincing jazz. But as with all of these things, it's not limited to jazz. It's something we can employ in our blues playing, we can employ in our rock playing. Let's do some blues stuff, because we did a lot of rock stuff. Let's throw on a blues that's maybe a bit more up-tempo, I guess. Let me make sure the delay's not on, because that's going to be a little annoying. Let's maybe throw on a blues with horns. This is quite good fun. Blues in A. I'm going to play all this stuff with just a level dynamic, with literally just everything, all of my playing at 8, let's say. We know lots of players who play like that. You may even be a player who plays like that. There's nothing wrong with it, but it might not be the best use of your soloing time. Check it out. Let's do that again with everything on a reasonable full lick. Now we're playing some cool lines there, we're getting all the chromatic stuff, we're targeting the chord tones. The dynamic's not really there. So let's start throwing in some more dynamic stuff where we play with some light and some shade, some soft notes, some loud notes, put the loud notes on the offbeats. Have far too much fun there. But you get the gist. Like, as soon as we start to introduce that dynamic in our playing, things really kind of go up a notch, so to speak. They become more interesting, it becomes more musical, it also sounds a little more jazz. I'm trying deliberately not to play too jazz in that example, but you get the gist. It's a really cool thing. Now, for most players, this has been my experience with coaching players, with chatting to players, most players don't have difficulty with loud notes. Most players spend too long at the loud end of the dynamic spectrum, and everything we play becomes loud. So it can be a lot of fun, an awful lot of fun, to perform an experiment like the one Tim Pierce talks about, where you set yourself up a clean tone that is very loud when you play loud. Try and play some solos using a volume that would be too loud for you, and you'd wince a little bit if you play loud, which is going to force you to play softly. Now, if you play softly with a lot of gain and a lot of compression, things really start to sing and they become very fat and very bold. Whereas if you lay in very hard with a lot of gain, a lot of sustain and compression, they get very screamy and very scratchy and aggressive, and that can be super cool too. Let me show you an example. So if we go to please don't shout at me amplifier, the amp is behaving, that's fine. So if we go to a big gain sound here, right? If I play with a fairly soft touch, which you'll notice because my hand will be doing this sort of thing. And then when I'm digging in, you'll see what I'm doing up here. So if I throw my big gain sound on, and I play softly, this sounds big and fast. I'm going to mute my microphone for this. If I play loud, because then you can't hear the string clack. If I play loudly, it becomes aggressive. Here's soft. Here's loud. Here how the loud one sounds kind of raggy and sounds kind of aggressive, a little bit tuning-y maybe. You know, tuning could be better. But if we throw that on with maybe like a rock backing track, let's try the Joe Bonamassa one again. If I play softly, this is in key of E, if I play softly, the notes get really thick. Play hard, the notes get really screamy. Soft. Let's take that back to the beginning so we don't get the chord changes, so we're not distracted. Check out the difference just in the bridge pickup between soft and hard. It didn't get louder, but it did change in tone, and it did have an effect on the vocal sound of my soloing. Now, if I apply this in my improvisation with dynamics as part of my expressive toolkit, man, there's some good stuff to be had there. One other thing to be aware of this that I didn't mention before, again, just going back to the jazz thing, this is a bonus. In addition to using dynamics as expression, we can also use note duration as expression in jazz. This is not some gigabrain thing, but let me just explain the difference very quickly. So note duration. We're going to go back to the jazz tone here real quick. If I play hear how there are some notes there that are long and joined up like this. And some notes that are staccato. Joined up. Staccato. Now, a contrast between the two, again, with our jazz blues in F. Check it out. All joined up. All staccato. Combination of the two. on we go. Now, by using this little algorithm of staccato notes equals soft, play staccato, play softly, we're on the soft end of the spectrum, long notes plus aggressive attack equals loud, and playing around with that little 4-pole thing, you can really create some interesting and expressive ideas in your soloing without having to resort to bending, vibrato, any of the above. If you haven't been paying attention to note duration and you haven't been paying attention to right hand dynamics, it's probably worth sitting and having a blag over some jazz blues. You don't need any tools beyond the stuff that you already have. Allow me to demonstrate. If I play, just as a wee little thing, if I play F major pentatonic over this whole track, whole track. We got some little tricks coming here, some really cool ideas. Ergohog is talking about the idea of using the thumb to play octaves, let's say. But check this out, right? Let's major pentatonic, right? We're not going to play any interesting notes, just major pentatonic all the way through. But we're going to try and get the jazz thing with just the dynamics and the note duration. It won't be as jazz, but it's just to show you how this would work. So you can still work on this stuff even if you don't have a jazz vocab, which I don't really. So, notice how important that touch is to the overall thing. It's like speaking a foreign language with the accent. You might not know all the words, but if you can get the accent right, you're most of the way there. Said the English person whose idea of speaking French is to shout, Parlez-vous anglais? I'm joking. I do try and speak the language wherever I go. Try my level best. But yes, this is the deal, right? This is the deal with jazz. Here are our tips as a quick reminder. Then we'll do a quick Q&A because we've overrun a little bit, but it's jazz, baby. Tip number 1 is jazz must always be pronounced jazz. That's tip 0. Tip 1 is when you're playing chords, the root note is not for you. The root note is for somebody else, somebody else's problem, which means you can spend your time playing other interesting notes. Makes your jazz playing very, very nice. Tip number 2 is use your tone control. Don't be afraid of the tone control. Don't be afraid to experiment with tone capacitor values. It's not just a jazz thing. It's not just for sounding like Carlos Santana. Your tone control is a lot of fun. Tip number 3 is to use dynamics and note duration as expressive tools. In jazz, they are your primary, sometimes only, expressive tools. If you bring this stuff over to your rock playing and to your metal playing, your jazz, your fusion playing, your blues playing, you will be a better player for it. If you want some stuff on chord tones and outside playing and all that sort of thing, go back a couple of weeks, check out our Steal These Licks from Fusion Players stream where we covered all that stuff. It's the reason we haven't done too much jazz vocabulary today, because we've already covered a bunch of it in our country stream and in our fusion stream. So fear not, if you want some more jazz vocab, we've got loads of great lessons on the subject. Go check out Dan Smith's Western Swing Licks. They're killer. That's where the backing track came from today. Also, don't forget to check out today's sponsored course, Cameron Allen's From Blues to Jazz. And finally, one more, if I might recommend myself, Tom Quayle's Absolute Beginners Jazz Guitar. That's all available on licklibrary.com. I'll say that one more time. Tom Quayle's Absolute Beginners Jazz Guitar. Chef's kiss. It's tremendous. Folks, we got time for a very brief Q&A. Let's go get it done. Here we go. Q&A. As for your questions, we've got some questions coming in. Let's address as many of them as we possibly can, rather, many as we can. Okay, so first one. Sensei Sunuf says, what's 36251? Well, 36251 is a progression we hear very often in jazz music, in the same way that we hear a 145 very often in blues music. We hear a 1, flat 6, flat 7, 1 very often in heavy metal music. on and so forth. I say heavy metal with the emphasis on the heavy. You won't hear this too much in modern metal. Sometimes you will. There's a lot of like flat 6-1 going on. But still, we get the gist. Now, the 3-6-2-5-1 refers to the following. If we take the idea of playing in G major, very quickly, I'll just throw this to you right now. G major, we have 7 notes to play with. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can hang a chord on each of these notes. If we hang a chord on 6, on 5, on 4, on 3, on 2, on 1, we can play chord 3, chord 6, chord 2, chord 5, 1. It gives us this. Not very jazzy, but if we give each one of these chords its appropriate value as a 7th chord, we can play chord 3, minor 7, chord 6, also minor 7, chord 2, minor 7, chord 5, dominant 7, usually altered dominant, chord 1, major 7, major 6, whatever you want to play it as, which gives us this. 3-6-2-5-1 as arpeggios. Oh, 3 first. So on and so forth. I'm still in jazz blues land, but you get the idea. It becomes this chord progression that we hear thousands of times over. It crops up in so many jazz standards, or some variation of. It might just be a 6-2-5-1. It might just be a 2-5-1. It might go further, it might go less, it might move through different keys. But this chord progression, this movement of is at the heart of jazz harmony, because jazz harmony, generally speaking, is what we refer to as functional harmony, in the sense that every chord serves to have a function. It goes somewhere. Now, this is only scratching the very surface of the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg of jazz harmony, but it's just to show you what's going on there. Now, this leads me to my next question, which is Sacred Godslayer. Walking bass is something I can't get my head around conceptually. Walking bass doesn't have to be complicated, but what walking bass basically is we are wandering from root note to root note in a kind of a direction, but we're doing it with the same sensibility that we play chromatic lines with. So if we took the idea of maybe playing some chromatic soloing, targeting this 3-6-2-5-1 in G, let's go to, in fact, let's not go to these cameras, let's go to these cameras. Oh, where's my face? I want my face on this one so you guys can see me struggle. So if I take this idea of targeting these root notes on here, I might get, let's maybe go, with some chromatic lines. We can do the same with our bass. Now that seems very obtuse. Probably the easiest way to do this is to take a 3-6-2-5-1, play the chord, and wander the bass line, starting on the root note, and then if you're going up, go up. It can be scale notes. Usually there's not enough time to play the scale notes. Usually we end up going too far. So we throw some chromatic notes in to fill in the gap. We can go from below, we can go from above, we can start above, and if we're going to land too soon, we can go one blow and creep back up. That, in its essence, is walking bass. Now, walking bass is something that would be the subject of huge amounts of tuition, and I have neither the time nor the expertise to demonstrate this to you today or any other day. However, as some of you folks have rightly pointed out, we got some great tuition stuff on this subject. Marcine says Lewis Turner's Art of Jazz Soloing is awesome as well. Can confirm it is a great course. Probably what I encourage you to do, go to licklibrary.com, just type in jazz, see what comes up. There's loads of material there. It's definitely worth your time. Folks, we have one more in this series of streams when it comes to stealing licks from other styles of guitar. I'm not going to tell you what it is because you'll have to tune in next week, but we are here every week, every Monday, doing all of the same stuff. It's always a good time. Folks, I want to thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to play out a little bit longer on the old jazz theme. We got 2 minutes of backing track. This backing track is part of Dan Smith's 51 Western swing, my mistake, Western swing licks. Great course, great backing track. Good jazz. And I'm going to see if I can sum up all the stuff that we've done, apart from the chord thing, so I won't be playing too many chords. Again, if you want some more stuff like this, go check out our fusion stream, go check out our country stream, go check out all the tuition materials we've got. I'll see you guys next week. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, now is the time. Drop us a subscribe, hit the bell icon so we can let you know when we're about to go live and when we drop all sorts of new videos. If you're watching on licklibrary.com, head to the Guitar Interactive YouTube channel and go there for gear, news, reviews, interviews, all that good stuff. If you're watching on Guitar Interactive, go to licklibrary.com to get all the lessons under the sun, everything from classic albums through to jazz, which we're about to play. Thanks for having me. My name's Nick Jennison. I will see you guys next Monday. Let's jazz in the key of F. Hi, my name's Nick Jennison, and it's my pleasure to announce that GI Plus, the exclusive lesson platform from Guitar Interactive magazine, is moving to licklibrary.com. GI Plus features a whole host of the best players and educators in the world, bringing you exclusive lessons on everything from metal to blues to fusion and everything in between. Want to level up your shred chops? Check out How to Play Fast by Andy James. Or how about Sweep Picking with Rick Graham? Or maybe country's more your bag? Well, how about a full-length country guitar course from Andy Wood? Interested in learning how to play over changes? Well, members get access to hours of exclusive lessons from fusion maestro Tom Quayle. Or maybe you want your playing to sound more soulful. Well, who better than Chris Buck to show you how it's done? Members also get access to every lesson ever published in Guitar Interactive magazine, including Michael Caswell's legendary Pro Concepts column. Or maybe you want to learn the secrets of the masters. Well, members get access to over 70 full-length tech sessions where our tutors painstakingly decode the styles of players like David Gilmour, Eddie Van Halen, John Petrucci, Larry Carlton, Slash, Tosin Abasi, Paul Gilbert, and many more. And you get all of this in addition to all of the amazing content on licklibrary.com, which includes note-for-note tuition of over 60 classic albums, weekly lesson uploads, a backing track library, and one-to-one player support. There has never been a better time to sign up than right now.